Hello everybody, in this episode we are gonna go deeper, that doesn't sound good, dive deeper into some React, some more complex topics like state management. So if you've never really done anything like this before, then I think it's gonna improve you and make you a way better developer, and you can create some more and more complex applications with this. So stay tuned and let's get going. Okay, let's get started. And as you can see, I don't have the background anymore with the circle. I'm fully integrated into VS Code. Let me know what you think below of this new setup I got going here. I really like it. I can point to things. It's nice. I love it. So let's start. The thing I have here is just a normal create React app project. It's empty. I just installed it. If you want to follow along, all you have to do is go to Terminal up here and click New Terminal. This is going to pop up, and then all you have to do is say npx create react app, like so, with the dash in between, not the dash, a line, dash line, line, and then you can give it a name. So we can say state management or something like that. I have mine installed here already, so we don't have to do any of this. And let's just quickly set something up here. I'm going to delete the files that we don't need. I'm going to get rid of the SVG here. I'm going to get rid of the app.js test file. Let me mute the sound. Let's also get rid of the, what else here? I think that's going to be fine. Okay, here in app.js, I'm going to get rid of the SVG up here, and also get rid of everything in the app here. I'll just leave an empty div with a class name of app. Now, to understand state better, I'm going to show you the problems first. And I'm going to show you the difficulty that you might face, and then we're going to take a look on how we can fix it. Okay, so the first thing, let's say I'm building a movie app or something that I have a movie list. And I want to display all the movies, and I also want to have like a navigation, maybe with my name, a dashboard kind of thing, and it also says the list of movies I have. Okay, so let's kind of create a component with the movie list. So I'm going to go to source here. I'm going to click new. I'm going to say movie list.js, just like that. Now here I can say import React from React, and we're going to do this to almost all the components. We're going to export something that I'm going to create right now, movie list, and this is going to be export default. I'm like, why is this not working? There we go, export default movie list. And here you would create the components. So we're going to say const movie list is equal to a function. Okay, and this is going to return some JSX in here. Perfect. So we need a state. Now, if you think about it, where would the state fit? So I want to have a list of movies in my state. Now, it doesn't really make any sense to put it into the app component because it doesn't really have to do anything with it, but the movie list is a good candidate for that. So let's import useState here. So I'm going to add a comma, and I'm going to say useState like this in curly braces. And up here before the return, we can create that state. Now I have a list of state here already pre-made, just so this doesn't take so much time. And all it is basically a list of movies. So let's take a look at this. We have a const, some movies, and set movies here, which is going to be equal to useState. And this is just going to be an array of objects. So we have an object here with Harry Potter, with the price and an ID. We also have another one, Game of Thrones, $10, and ID. And Inception here. Okay, so that's all that we have here. Eventually, what I want to do is just take out the state and output it here. So I'm going to map through this, so each and every object, and I'm going to output it to the screen. So we can add some curly braces, and I can say movies, because that's the list I want to go through, .map, and all we have to do in the parentheses here is just add movie. So that's a single movie. And we can add an arrow function here. And I'm not going to add curly braces. I'm just going to add some normal parentheses, which basically is going to mean that we can return something here. And for now, let's just return an li of, and I'm going to add curly braces again, of movie dot, and let's say we want to output the name. So movie name. Okay, hit save. And let's actually take a look at this. I'm going to start npm start in the terminal, and that's not going to work because we need to import it in our app here. I'm going to import the movie list from /movie list. Okay, and I'm going to render it down here. movie list, like so. Hit save. Let's take a look. Hopefully this works. And this actually gives me an error because we have to make sure that we wrap this output here into a div or something. So div, pro tip that we cannot do is we cannot return multiple children. Okay, we have to have one main div around something because JSX is not going to let us to do that. So all I'm going to do is just wrap this into another div like so, and that's going to work just fine. I'm not sure what this is. I'm going to delete it. There we go. And now if we take a look, we have Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, and Inception. Now, I don't want this to be an li, so what we can do again is just make a component that's specific to a movie. So we can output movie name, the price, and things like that. So for that, I'm just gonna quickly make another one, movie.js. I'm gonna quickly copy everything from here, movie list, paste it in here, and I'm just gonna delete the state. We don't need the state here. And use state, I'm not gonna need it. And I'm just gonna change the name to movie. And down here, also to movie. Okay, we're not gonna map over anything here, but I'm gonna output the h3 with the movie. So how can we learned how we can pass down information from the movie list, so from up here down into this movie. And the way we do that is, well, first we import the thing that we need in here. So I need the movie in here. So let's import it, import movie from /movie, like that. And rather than outputting an li, I'm gonna output the movie. Okay, hit save, and now we're gonna get some errors, but that's fine. And now the thing we need to do is we need to pass down the information from here to here. So the way we can do that is in props. So we can go down here to the movies, and we can say movie, and let's say name. We want to pass down a prop called name. We can set it equal to movie.name, okay? Which is basically this, movie name, all right? Hit save, and hit save here. I think that's why it gave me an error. And the way we can pass down the movie name from here to here is with props. So we can say props here, and then in the h3, we can just say props.name. Hit save, let's take a look. And we should get the same kind of output here. Now we can shorten this by not saying props. We can just pull out the name and we can get rid of this. Hit save, that should still work. And it doesn't work because we need to wrap this with parentheses like so. Hit save, let's take a look. Okay, that works. And now let's also add the price down here. So we can say let's add a p tag here, price. So again, to pass it down, all we have to do is go back here to the movie list, say price equals movie.price. Perfect, hit save, and down here, now we have available the price. So we can say price, and we can output it in this p tag. And there we go, everything works, that's fine. So hopefully you're comfortable with this so far. And the next thing I want to do, we're going to get this ugly error here that's going to say each child in the list should have a unique key. So to get rid of that, all we have to do is in here, just say key, and I'm going to set this equal to movie.id. So this one down here, and that's going to get rid of that ugly error message. Okay, so we kind of see what's going on here. Everything is fine. Everything works perfectly. But let's say I want to create a nav component. Okay, and in that nav component, I want to show my name and the list of movies I have. Take a look at this. I'm going to go to new. I'm going to create a nav.js. All right, I'm going to go to the movies, just copy the import statements and everything to this nav. I'm going to change this to nav. I'm going to get rid of everything here. I don't need anything. There we go. And for return, I'm just going to return, let's say, my name, so dev add, and a p tag with the list of movies. And I'm going to add a double dot, and this is going to be the number here, how many movies I have in my list. So for now, it's going to be empty, and I'm going to replace this with nav. All right, so I want my nav to show up in here. So I'm going to import nav from nav, like so, and I'm going to render it in this app component. So I'm going to say nav, like so. Hopefully everything should still work. There we go. And I'm also going to style this a bit to make it look more like a nav because it doesn't look like a nav. Finally, here is where we are facing our issues. In app.js, I'm rendering the nav and the movie list, okay? These two should be separate, okay? They have nothing to do with each other. But in this case, I do want to render the number of items I have in the movie list in the nav. And I cannot do that because the only way you can do that is by passing it down through props. So app can pass things down to this and this if it has a state. So in this case, we only have state in movie list. So the only way I can pass this down to another component is by props like this. I can just make another component like this, put it in here, and I can pass down the information maybe from the state down here in props. And now it's available in the movies. So here in the props and in here. Okay, so the only way we could get this to work is to render the nav here. So I would render the nav in here and then maybe pass down the prop like amount of books or something like that is going to be equal to, which is going to be movies dot name dot length or something like that, right? That's going to give us the number. But I don't want to render the nav here. It makes no sense to have the nav in my movie list component. So how can we fix this? Well, one way to fix this is something called lifting up the state, which sounds super fancy, but it's not fancy. And the logic behind that is we can take all the state from here, cut it, and move it up to our parent component. So we would render the state up here. And this way, now we can pass down the movies to our nav and our movie list. So we can pass it down to any component we want. The problem with this is that we're going to have a lot of state in our app component that doesn't belong to the app component. So you might have inputs here, set movies, buying, cart. This works, but it's gonna be a bit difficult because if we also want to pass down props, we're going to have to prop drill, which basically means we have to pass down props from component to component to component. So in this case, now if I want to pass down the movies all the way to the movie, we would have to do this. We would take the movies here, pass it down to the movie list, then we have access to the movie list and the props. So here we would have the movies, and then render the movies here, and then pass it down again in props and render it here. So we would have to keep passing the props over and over and over again until it arrives to the specific component we want. And Ed, my head is gonna blow up. Tell us how we can make this super simple. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's get rid of this function app. I'm not gonna add the state in here. We're gonna keep this simple. Here, I'm gonna pass everything back up. So the way we were in the first place. So the way we can fix this issue is with state management. And we have actually something baked in straight into React, which is called context. Now we're gonna cover Redux a bit later, but I think once you pick up context, Redux is gonna be way easier. So that's why I kind of wanna cover this in the first place. So the way this works is rather than adding the state in this movie list, we can separate that logic, that information, and creating a context component, a movie list context. And then with that context, we can pass it down to whichever component we want without going through props and things like that and passing it down in here, and then it goes in here, and okay? So let's take a look how we can do that. I'm gonna create a new file in our source directory, and I'm gonna call this movie list context, okay? Or just movie context to keep this simple. .js. The thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna import React, just like we normally do, const React from React, like so. I'm gonna create a component, const, and I'm gonna name this MovieProvider. I'm gonna explain everything in here in just a second. Let's just create the component here, like so, and I'm gonna return something. Okay, let's export this. And actually I'm gonna export this like so, export up here, and not default, because we need to export two different things from this component. So we're saying, wait, this is not okay. Import, not const. Import React from React. And the thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move the state from our movie list in this movie context. I'm going to cut everything out from here and paste it in here. All right, so that's the first step we need to do. The second step is to import useState because we're using useState in here. So I'm going to say curly braces useState. Now, how can we create that context? Well, we just say create context. Okay, we add a comma, create context. Now, to initiate that context, we need to do it above here, so outside of this component. Now, hang around with me. This is a bit tricky, but it's going to make sense in just a bit, I promise. So let's create a context. And the way we can do that is we can say const movie context. Okay, I'm going to give it the same title that we did up here. Movie context is going to be equal to, and we're going to use this create context. I'm going to add some parentheses because this is a function, and I'm also going to export this. All right, so we're exporting two different things, this movie provider and this movie context. And the way this is going to work is whenever we want to use our movie context, so whenever we want to use the information from this, we just import this movie context. So if I want to use it in here, I import the movie context. The movie provider is basically just going to provide the information to the different components. So this is just a one-time thing that we need to do, is we need to wrap this movie provider around all the components that we want to give that ability to access that state. So in the return here, what I basically want is to render out this movie context like so. We're going to say movie context. I'm going to close this, and it's going to say dot provider. All right, same goes here, dot provider. Well, that's going to do it 2 times like that. And in here, basically what I want to do is render all the components in between. And the way we can do that is rather than adding everything in here, like nav and movie list. All right, so basically this movie provider, all it's doing is providing this information to these small components in here. But rather than doing this, nav list and movie list, we can get rid of everything in here and just say props.children. And what props.children is going to do, it's just going to render all the child components, whatever it's wrapped in between these. Okay, so let's also add props up here. And now we can just import this movie provider in our app and wrap everything around it. So I'm going to say import movie provider from /movie context. And now since we're not exporting this default, see, we're exporting these both separately, we need to make sure that we add curly braces around this movie provider. So here, I'm just going to wrap it into curly braces. And now all we have to do is just say movie provider and just wrap all the components that we want to pass that state down to in this movie provider. Boom, there we go. So now everything, all the state from this movie provider is easily accessible in these components. Okay, now to experiment with this and try it out, let's go back to the movie context here. We can actually pass down a value. So for now, we can just go here where we return the movie context.provider, and we can just add a value. And for this one, I'm just going to add a string that says hello. Perfect. Now we're going to have some issues here because I don't think we are rendering the movie list here anymore. So if we save this, it's going to error out because movies is not defined right now. This component has no idea where movies is. So I'm just going to comment this out for a second. All right, like so. Hit save. Now it should be good. Okay, so let's take a look again here what we're doing. We create a movie provider and a movie context. This movie provider's job is to just hold some information and then pass it down to all the different components that we want to. So that's why we added this props.children. So we create this movie provider and we wrap our entire app around it. And now everything in here has access to all the information. So all the information that is in this value. We use the movie context here. We're going to import this to actually use it and the different components we want to. All right, Ed, enough talking. Show us how this is done. So let's go back to our movie list, and let's say I want to use that information. So this hello, this value. Let's take a look on how we can do this. We can go up here. We can import this movie context. So let's import movie context from movie context. And now to consume this, so we have access to the value, we can import from React something called useContext. All right, so we create the context and now we're using it. So in the component, all we have to do is say const value, for example, is equal to useContext, so the thing that we're importing from React. And in the parentheses, we just pass in the context that we want to use. So movie context, that's the thing I want to use. That's it. That's it. Now here I have access to that value. So take a look. I can just create a h1 and just say value. Hit save. Let's take a look. Look at that. We have hello. Let's change that. Let's go back to movie context. I'm going to change this hello to something like, hey, this works. Awesome. Hit refresh. And as you can see, hey, this works. Now, if I want to use it somewhere else, maybe I want to use it in my nav, all I have to go is go to my nav. I need to import useContext and movie context. And I just say const value equals useContext and just wrap the movie context around it. And now I have the information from here. So everything that I have in here is available to me. Okay, cool, Ed, but I don't want this hey, this works in here. I want the movies. How do I get the movies? Well, that's super simple. All we have to do is rather than rendering the string, we can just add an array, and then we can just say movies. And optionally, we can set movies. So I can render out the entire state from here. So now I have an array with movies and set movies. So now in here, in our movie list, rather than saying const value, I can get rid of this. And this is kind of going to look like the way we set our state. You know, we have a movie and set movies. So that's kind of the same thing I'm going to do here. I'm going to say movies and set movies. And everything should magically work. Let's get rid of this. And let's also get rid of these. Whoa, like that. Hit save. Let's take a look, and look at that. We're back to normal. Everything works the same way, but we separated everything, our state from this component, into its own kind of context in here. Now look at this. Now we can super easily render our number of items in our nav if we want. So let's take a look on how we can do that again. We can go to the nav. We can just import movie context from movie context. Good. And if you remember, the other thing that we need is use context. Okay, that's how we use it. We just say use context. And down here, we can say const array, and we can say movies and set movies. That's going to be equal to use context, and we're going to give it the context that we want to use, movie context. So here in the list of movies, all I want to do is just render out movies.length. Hit save. Let's take a look. And there we go. We have 3 movies. How easy is that? So this just takes a bit of setup, but once you do it, it's very easy to just import this and use it in whatever component you want. As long as, again, just you have everything wrapped around this in our app, as long as you have this provider wrapped around all the other components, your state is going to be accessible in here. As a last step, let's also create a component that will allow us to add additional movies to our list. All right, so let's go to add movie here, and I'm going to show you something cool, how we can also pass functions down in our context and just use it wherever we want. So I'm just going to create an add movie.js in here. I cannot spell today. There we go. I'm going to import React from React like that. I'm going to use state here. So I'm going to add a use state because I want to render out 2 inputs. So I'm going to create a const add movie. It's going to be equal to an arrow function again. And here I just want to have, let's return a form. So I'm going to have a form like so. The action, I'm going to remove the action for now, like so. I'm going to have an input type text like that. I'm gonna have let's add the name of name. So this is gonna be the name of the title of the movie. Let's also create an input, and this is gonna be the price. So name is gonna be equal to price. There we go. Let's also add a button that's gonna say submit. Perfect. So let's get the state going here so we can get the information. We're gonna create a const, and I'm gonna set it to name and set name. And this is gonna be equal to useState, and it's gonna be an empty string, okay? Because our input is gonna be empty at the beginning. The second one is gonna be the price. So I'm gonna say price and set price. This is gonna be equal to useState and another empty pair of strings. Perfect, so let's create a function here that we can start writing, and it's gonna update this state. We're gonna say const update name. It's gonna be equal to, I'm gonna add an event here as our parameter, like that. And now we can just call set name. And the name I want is the element, the event target value. And what that is basically the input's text. So down here, we can set the value equal to, and we can pass it this name value. All right, which is gonna be an empty string again. And now to update it, we can set an onChange. And that's gonna be equal to update name. And that's it, that's all we have to do. We can actually just copy paste this down here, and we can set update price to this, update price. And we can just do kind of the same thing here. Value is gonna be price now, like so, and the onChange is gonna be equal to set price. All right, and the onChange is gonna be update price here, actually, update price. Perfect. So to finally submit this form, I'm gonna create a const add movie function that's gonna be equal to, I'm gonna add the event here again, and I'm gonna use this event to prevent default, which all it does is just it stops the page from refreshing when you click on the form. So event dot prevent, I'm having a hard time now, prevent default. There we go, perfect. And all I wanna do is set my movies here. All right, but hey, we don't have access to the movies yet, so we cannot do this. Whew. All right, let's get this add movie and render it in our app. In here, I'm gonna import add movie from /add movie. And again, I can render it here or wherever I want. I'm just gonna do it here, add movie. Let's just make sure it displays on the screen. Whew, all right, attempted import does not contain a default export. So we need to make sure that we export this add movie. Export default add movie. Perfect, hit save. Let's take a look again. Everything works fine now, so that's perfect. But the problem is that we need to somehow add a movie from here and update our movie context, okay? Because that's where all the information is coming from. So how can we do that? How can we get to run this code and update our state that we're using throughout our app? Because that's the problem we're having here. We need to have access to the movies. So again, remember, in our movie context, we have access to set movies if we want. So we can just use this. All right, so let's import this. Again, the way we can import it is just say useContext here, useContext, and I'm also gonna import the movie context. Import movie, make sure to wrap this in curly braces, movie context from /movie context. And now here, all I have to do is say const movies and set movies. That's gonna be equal to useContext and pass down the context I wanna use. I wanna use the movie context. Perfect. All right, so now we have access to set movies in here. So down here, the way we can do it is we can say set movies, like so. And actually here, you also have access to the latest rendered movie list. So previous movies. The reason why I'm doing this is because this way you can get the latest information about the state in here. So everything is going to update correctly. That's why I'm adding previous movies in here. So eventually, all I want to return is an array, right? Because our movie list is an array here with all these small objects. So the way we can do that is just say ... previous movies. And what this 3 dots means with the previous movies, it just means that it's going to make a copy of our object here, of our array of objects. And now all I want to do is just add a comma and just add another object. So I'm going to create another object in here and say, hey, the name is going to be, well, the name from the state here. And the price is going to be, well, the price from our input. And that's it. Hit save. Now on my form, all I want to do is add an unsubmit that's going to be equal to, and all we have to do is say add movie. So I'm executing this function. Hit save, and let's pray for the gods and say, what other movies are there? Let me see. The Emoji Movie. And the price is $0 because it's not that good. And something weird happened here. As you can see, it resets. So let's also take a look at what's going on in here. So we set the value name to update name and the value price to update price. The reason why that's happening is because we have set name on both of our functions. So in this case, yeah, we set the name here, but on the update price, we set the price. So set price. Hit save. Let's try the Emoji Movie again. Emoji Movie price is $0. Hit submit, and look at that. There we go. We have access to the Emoji Movie, and now everything updates just fine. List of movies is 4 now. We're getting this error here, the key props, because I didn't pass down an ID with this new object, but that's fine in this case. And as you can see, we can just create whatever we want, and we have access to the state everywhere in our application. Downside of this context API that we're using is that it's really good if we want to just render out information. Okay, so maybe I just want to render out the number like we did in our cart here. So I just imported everything. Let's go to the, where is it? Into the nav here. So I just imported in and I just displayed it on the screen. So it's really good for that. Now the downside is if you want to change something in this context, so in this case in the add movie, we set the movies here. The problem is every time we update the code in our useContext, all the components that use this context are gonna re-render. That's it. Thank you very much for watching. Don't worry if you didn't get it straight off the bat. It can be quite a difficult concept to get a hang of. But I highly recommend you to give it a shot and try it in your projects. And once it clicks for you, I promise that you're really gonna love it. So that's it for me. Make sure to also drop a sub if you haven't so far, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram for additional content. All right, everybody, until next time, I hit the microphone.